I always believed I was a loyal woman, the kind who stayed faithful no matter how lonely marriage became. My husband, always distant, often absent, spoke more to his phone than to me. I told myself that love meant endurance. Then he brought his son from his first marriage back into our home for a short stay. Tall, quiet, polite, he carried himself like someone unaware of the effect he had on others. I didn't notice it at first. Then I caught him that afternoon halfway down the hallway, tangled with someone, breathless, raw desire carved on his face. I gasped, hid behind the half-closed door, cheeks flushing with shame. I should have walked away, but I stood there frozen, eyes locked on something I knew I shouldn't see. My heart thudded. There was something about witnessing his urgency, his hunger, that awakened something forgotten inside me. That night I lay beside my snoring husband, staring at the ceiling, pulse racing for reasons I couldn't admit even to myself. I started remembering every ignored touch, every year of passionless marriage, the moments I felt more like a caretaker than a woman. In the dim glow of the moonlight I found myself wondering how it would feel to be wanted the same way he had wanted that girl. It disgusted and thrilled me at once. I scolded myself, called myself wicked. Still, I replayed the memory over and over until I fell asleep. The next morning I avoided his eyes, cheeks heating up whenever he walked past me. He said good morning and I nearly spilled tea on the counter. His scent lingered in the kitchen. I could feel his presence even before he entered a room. I started putting more effort into my appearance than I had in months. Brushed my hair slowly, used the perfume I had been saving. I told myself it was just for confidence, nothing more. He noticed anyway. The way his gaze lingered, slightly too long, burned through me. He said I looked different, beautiful. I dismissed him, pretending not to care, but inside it felt like a forbidden seed sprouting. When he brushed past me in the hallway, shoulders accidentally touching, electricity shot through my veins. My husband hardly spoke to me except to ask for food or laundry. Meanwhile his son, unintentionally or otherwise, made me feel seen again. Every time our hands came close while passing dishes I felt my breath catch. The wrongness of my thoughts made it even harder to resist them. I began praying to be invisible, and yet wanting the opposite. A strange dance of guilt and longing made even simple chores emotionally exhausting. One evening as he thanked me for dinner I watched his lips form my name with such warmth I felt my knees weaken. I realized, terrified, that I was waiting for him to break this invisible wall first. If he didn't, maybe I would. The boundary was thin, trembling, and I sensed already that once crossed nothing would ever be the same again. That night I hardly slept. His accidental touch still lingered on my skin, haunting me like a whisper I couldn't escape. In the morning I tried my best to avoid the kitchen until he left the house, but when I stepped in to check on breakfast I found him already standing there, shirt sleeves rolled up, stirring eggs like he belonged beside me. He greeted me softly. I couldn't form words. Instead I focused on pouring coffee, though my hands trembled so much I nearly spilled it. He stood close enough that our elbows brushed. After a moment of charged silence, he gently took the spoon from my hand, his fingers brushing mine. My cheeks flamed with heat as I stepped back too quickly, knocking into the counter. He immediately stepped away, apologizing, but the look in his eyes said everything. We didn't speak of it. Later I tried distracting myself with cleaning, pretending he didn't affect me, but each sound of his footsteps behind me sent my heart racing with anticipation. As I dusted the bookshelf, he passed by me, so close I could feel his breath warm on my neck. I held my breath, frozen. For a second neither of us moved. I could hear his heartbeat, violent and quick. Then the front door slammed, the sound of my husband leaving again for another business trip without so much as a goodbye kiss. I watched his car disappear and something inside me shifted. I was tired of being ignored. I turned back to find him still watching me as though caught. When he whispered my name in that low tone, it felt like a caress. He asked if I was all right. I managed a nod, but my voice betrayed me when I whispered I felt lonely. The word hung between us like confession. There was a flicker in his eyes, something like hesitation mixed with longing. He stepped closer until the space between us disappeared completely. I didn't back away. His finger lifted my chin. I knew I should stop this. I should turn away, remind him I was married, his father's wife. Instead I stayed perfectly still as his face came inches from mine. The air felt heavy with anticipation. I whispered that we couldn't do this. He whispered back that he has tried not to want me. Every breath between us felt like stolen time. For a moment he hesitated again, waiting for me to push him away. I didn't. Instead, I closed my eyes, surrendering. He pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, trembling as though afraid I might shatter. When I didn't move, his lips brushed the corner of mine, gentle, asking. The world spun. My body responded before my mind could catch up. I leaned forward, sealing a kiss that tasted like sin and honey. When it deepened, I clutched at his shirt, drowning in sensations I hadn't felt in years. It lasted only seconds, maybe minutes, before I tore myself away, breathless and horrified at what I'd allowed. He apologized, but neither of us meant it. I ran upstairs shaking, locking myself in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my burning face. I stared at my reflection, heart pounding. I'd crossed an invisible line. My lips still tingled with his forbidden taste. At dinner that evening we pretended nothing happened. Yet every glance across the table sparked with memory, every accidental touch pulsed with promise. As I lay in bed alone, my husband snoring far away in his dreams, I pressed my fingers to my lips remembering everything. Guilt and yearning twisted inside me. I realized it had begun. We were already slipping, and it was only a matter of time before we plunged completely into the darkness we had both been craving. I spent the next day in a haze, trying to go about my chores as if nothing had happened. But my mind kept wandering back to that kiss, the warmth of his mouth on mine, the way his hands had trembled as though touching something sacred. Every time I caught a glimpse of him across the house, my pulse spiked and I found excuses to leave the room. Yet the distance didn't help. My thoughts had already crossed every line I swore I would never approach. I told myself this would stop. Then my husband called to tell me he had to extend his trip for another few days. I should have felt relief at the extra freedom, but instead I felt dread. I knew I was too weak to be left alone in that house with temptation breathing down my neck. That evening I cooked a simple dinner, hoping he might stay out late with friends, but as soon as I turned from the stove I saw him leaning against the doorway, watching me with an intensity that stole the air from my lungs. He didn't speak. He simply walked forward and reached out slowly, like he was afraid I might shatter. His fingers brushed my cheek gently. I closed my eyes, my entire body humming with an ache that was slowly consuming me. He whispered that he couldn't stop thinking about me, about the kiss. Before I could stop myself, I admitted I felt the same. The confession left my lips in a rush, stripping away the last of my defenses. He took a step closer, closing the distance completely, and when his arms circled my waist I didn't resist. My head fell back as he kissed me again, gently at first, then with growing urgency. His hands were unsure, tender, exploring me like I was something fragile he'd dreamed of touching for years. Every breath I took deepened my desire, pulling me under until reason unraveled. I clutched at his shirt and felt his heart racing beneath my palm, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. His lips traveled down my neck, leaving trails of fire along my skin. Guilt twisted inside me, but I couldn't bring myself to pull away. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, to be cherished with such hunger. Each kiss drew us deeper into the forbidden, until our bodies pressed as close as our shattered morals would allow. I whispered his name once, the word trembling with fear and longing, before tugging him toward the safety of shadows away from any prying windows. We found ourselves on the couch, reckless and breathless. His fingers intertwined with mine, squeezing gently as if asking for permission one last time. Instead of speaking, I answered by arching forward, letting my actions confess what my tongue was too afraid to say aloud. We lost ourselves in that moment, tangled in sheets of desire and silenced moans, moving together in quiet desperation. Every sigh, every soft gasp echoed through the house like music too sinful to be sung. At the height of our passion, I felt time freeze. All I could think was that I had finally crossed the point of no return. When it was over, I lay there trembling in his arms, guilt dripping into my bloodstream like poison. He tried to hold me, but I pulled away, standing quickly, unable to face what we had just done. I felt exposed, ruined by my own longing. He whispered my name, pleading, but I shook my head, telling him to go to his room. I needed space to breathe, to think. As I hurried upstairs, heart still pounding with what we had done, I realized I had betrayed not only my husband, but myself. The next morning I could barely look at myself in the mirror. My body still remembered every stolen touch, every whispered plea, but my soul felt drenched in sin. I tried to calm myself as I dressed, forcing my hands to stop shaking. I went downstairs determined to act normal, to pretend I was still the woman I used to be. He sat at the breakfast table in silence, eyes filled with something I dared not name. I didn't speak to him, only poured myself tea with trembling fingers. The entire house felt different, heavy with secrets too dangerous to acknowledge. Every time I glanced up, he was watching me with the same question in his eyes. I refused to answer it. As hours passed, paranoia crept in. I imagined neighbors whispering, imagined my husband walking through the door without warning, imagined my shame exposed for all to see. I cleaned obsessively, desperate to scrub away the evidence of my betrayal. He followed me at a distance, trying to talk, but I kept shutting him out. Eventually, the tension broke. He stepped forward and begged me to look at him. His voice was soft, wounded. He said he was falling in love with me, that what happened between us meant something to him. Hearing those words snapped something inside me. I told him it couldn't happen again. I told him I was married to his father, that this would destroy us all. Tears stung my eyes as I pushed him away. He stared at me, devastated, before retreating to his room without another word. I collapsed onto the couch, choking back sobs of regret and longing. For hours I sat frozen, not knowing what kind of woman I had become. As night fell and the house grew quiet, the front door suddenly unlocked. I shot up, heart pounding as my husband stepped inside unexpectedly, suitcase in hand, his trip cut short. I plastered on a smile of welcome while my insides twisted in terror. He kissed my cheek casually and I flinched, terrified that he would somehow sense my betrayal in the tremble of my skin. He didn't seem to notice. We ate dinner together while I forced myself to talk about mundane things, pretending my world wasn't unraveling. Meanwhile, his son remained locked in his room, refusing to come down. My husband frowned at the closed door but didn't ask questions. Later that night I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling wide awake. Every breath felt like a lie. Just as I began to drift into a shallow, guilt-ridden sleep, I felt him roll toward me. He wrapped his arm around my waist and whispered so close to my ear that his breath made me shiver. "I know what you did." His words struck like lightning, freezing every muscle in my body. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. I tried to steady my heartbeat, praying I had misheard him. But he didn't repeat himself. Instead he pressed a strangely gentle kiss to the back of my neck and held me even tighter, as though he was afraid I might disappear. My mind raced with panic. Did he know everything? Had he seen us? Or was this some cruel test? I kept still, silent, terrified of confirming his suspicions. Minutes passed like hours until I felt his breathing slow back into the deep rhythm of sleep. Only then did I allow myself to exhale. Tears slipped down my cheeks as I lay trapped in his arms, guilt drowning me inch by inch. I realized I could never undo what I had done. Whether he truly knew or not, everything between us had changed forever. I stared into the darkness knowing that from now on my life would be a series of secrets, lies, and fears. I had crossed a line I could never uncross, and the consequences were only just beginning.